65. He worked in the crib or what it was, you know,
Yeah,
handing out thing. But
right. Yeah, the equipment and stuff. Yeah.
but then he got a job after that as bartender at a place called Pitt's. I don't know if the Pitt's real estate people are still the same people or not,
Oh, for God's sakes,
you know.
yeah.
But they had a actually it was called Nelson's, but it was Pitt owned it downtown.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So he'd made a
he,
whole life here. How did he get to Bridgeport?
he came originally to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania,
Oh, okay.
and he stayed there a few years, quite a few years. But there was so much manufacturing in Bridgeport, there was a lot of work.
Oh, okay.
So he had heard about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, this would be 38, 39 when United States was putting things together because they figured they were going to be in trouble, you know.
Yeah.
So they started manufacturing these planes in there. See, so he got a job there.
Yeah. What was the largest change you had from coming from Ireland to here? What was the biggest change?
Biggest change was the freedom. Freedom from being questioned of what your religion is. And, you know, back home in Ireland, you know, when you got on the bus and there was somebody sitting beside you, you know, and I must mention too that the buses during the war years was all wooden seats in them.
Mm-hmm.
It's all utility. Everything was utility. Your clothes was utility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there wasn't no brand names or anything. Everything was utility. But you had a conversation, but it was always the question of what religion are you?
Find out. Subtly.
Well, either seeing what what you could decipher out of the conversation, and find out what this person was, see, whether he's going to be a deep friend or just a regular acquaintance, you know, one of these things, you know. See, but when I come to the United States, it was so good. Nobody asked you, you know. Actually, last year, I'm in Ireland, see, and they give grants to seniors, you know, to fix up your house.
Mm-hmm.
See, I went to get a grant. I was going to try and get a new roof on the house because it's a slated roof, you know, and some of them, once in a while, the high winds come or whatever, and a slate will come off, see. So I patched it up through the years. And then I went into the housing authority in Newry and got a form. The fourth question down the street is, what religion are you?
Wow.
Yes.
Even in this day and age.
Even this day and age, that was 2 years ago, yes, yeah. See, so, you know, it was a sort of a thing that when he come over here, he had so much freedom. Like, he's Protestant, you don't care.
Yeah.
You don't care one way or another, no matter what religion you are.
Right.
Yes. If you're a nice person, you're a nice person.
Right.
That's it, yes, yeah. So it was to get away from that. And another thing that impressed me was how small the policemen were. In Northern Ireland, you had to be over 6 feet before you'd be a policeman, you know. And of course, policemen were always big, and they had a gun. The southern guards, you know, the guards down the south, they didn't carry guns. Right. Yes, yeah, there's a difference, yeah.
How did you go about finding Irish people? Did you go out looking for Irish people?
Well, I had a namesake that was here. Actually, she was a sister of my eventual brother-in-law. He was Frank Bellew. There's the same name, actually. See, there was a lot of Bellews around. There was 3, 4 families. Like there's 11 houses on Kiltyban Road of Bellews.
Wow.
Today.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyhow, this sister of his, when I came over here, she worked with the Archie Wheeler. I don't know if you ever knew where Archie Wheeler was. He had a big mansion right up there in front of the St. Augustine's. You know, it's a great big mansion.
Yes.
Well, she worked there, and he was there alone, but he had 4 servants. You know, she was a cook, and there was another cook, and then there was Peggy Gill. Did you ever know Peggy Gill?
I did. Yeah.
Peggy Gill worked there for and there was Bridie Lynch. She became Cullinan, Bridie Cullinan. See, but they were there when Minnie was there. God rest her soul. She was very, very kind to everybody, you know, and we used to go up there all the time. But there was one section of the house, see, which the servants had to themselves, see? And we'd go up there every Thursday night and go in there. And two of the biggest devils we had was Mary Shea, which is a sister of Eileen Boland's.
Yes, yes.
And there was another girl called Rosaline Taylor. She went to New York. And those were really some. What a couple of hoots they were. My Lord, we used to have more fun. But Minnie would put on the record player, you know, dancing, and we would dance there. And then we would play all kinds of game, blind man's buff. But this particular night we were there, and I don't know what it was, but anyhow, there was two of them rushing to get on the couch. It was I don't know what the game was now, but whatever it was, both of them rushed, jumped on the couch, and the couch went down.
Oh,
and Minnie was, of course, you know, she was aghast at this, you know. See, so everything slowed down after that a little bit, you know. But all the drapes around the windows and all like that, we used to hide behind them, you know. Everything else like that. But she got the carpenter in the next day, you know. There was all kinds of help there. All she had to do was to get it fixed, yes.
And was that how you met Anne? Was she one of those parties?
Anne came in 50, I don't know, it was 50 or 51. It must have been 50, yes, yeah. But I remember one time where I was down in the park, you know, Jimmy Cocker and I were great friends.
Is that
the Seaside Park? Yes, yeah. Yeah, I should mention where it was, yeah. But we were down in the park, and of course I used to always take some friends up, you know, to Minnie's on a Thursday night. That was maid's night off.
Yes, right, yeah.
Yeah. See, so all the girls would be down there that would work in different places. See, so. Well, I was down there and I asked a couple, you know, and they asked a couple and they asked some more. The next thing we had 14 people up with Minnie, and we had a ball.
Yeah.
We certainly had, yes, yeah. But Mr. Wheeler, he was very, very good to them, you know. He liked to see them have friends in, and he would come the next morning. Oh, I heard you had friends in last night, you know. Of course, the screams of us. He couldn't help it but know that we were in there. And seeing that I liked music, he liked music. And he had a big long hallway, you know. It was an upstairs. And it was all open down to the living room or something downstairs. But in this hallway around the top, he used to have the gramophone and the speakers on one side and the speakers on the other side, you know, and there was about maybe 20, 25 feet of difference, you know. And you got in between them, would blow you. He was a little deaf, you know, and he used to blow my ears. But of course I couldn't say nothing. I just sat there and listened to this operatic music, which I didn't care for either. But he was very, very nice. He came to the house. He didn't come to the wedding when I married. He came to the house after that. But there was a question on that. Say, we had moved in, and you know, everything was new. We had
it's warm in here.
Okay, stand by.
Okay.
And we're rolling.
Okay. So we were with Mr. Wheeler.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, he didn't come to the wedding, as I said, you know, but he came out later on, about maybe 3 weeks later. Peggy Gill took him out, see. But of course he came out with a chauffeur, you know, driving the big limousine, you know, stopped in front of the house, came in. Now, we took him into the living room, see. But what are we going to do with the chauffeur, you know? we can't take him in and put him in the living room too.
Yes.
So we have to take him into the kitchen. But then we have no dining room, and when we take him, Mr. Wheeler, to the kitchen for a meal, we have to get rid of.
Show for someone else.
Oh God, it was a tight situation.
Now, tell me
But,
how you met Anne, your wife.
Well, we have two versions of that.
Okay. Well, I'll get your version. She has a different one. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I used to go out with a girl. I don't know if you know her. Actually, she was the sister of Christine O'Donnell's husband. Her name is Marie O'Donnell. Yes, yeah. So I went out with her a few times, and was she was a nice girl, yeah. But she lived out on Mine Hill Road. That's out in Greenfield Hill area, see. So anyhow, Anne had been working in Bridgeport in some doctor's house, When she came here, she got this job, see. But she found that she wanted to get out of there, and she wanted to move out to this other place, see. So Marie suggested that to call me up because I had a car, because not everybody had a car at that particular time. See. So anyhow, she called me up, see. And I said, oh, sure, I'd be glad to do it, see. Well, I went and got all the stuff and took her out there. We talked some more, and we got together. And I asked her for a date, one thing or another. So I guess we liked each other, and that's how we got together. Wow. Yes, yeah.
And when were you married?
Married in February 52.
52.
Yeah.
Okay. And she had just come out in when? 51?
Pardon?
When she came out, when did she come out to this?
She came in 50, yes, yeah.
In 50?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, she wasn't 21 yet.
Oh, yeah.
See, so there's a difference of age there, you see.
Right.
But
And did you have, and you had children. How many children did you have?
I had 5 children.
5 children. And what did
But
they
I'd bought the house in Fairfield before we were married.
Okay.
Because I wanted, that was in Bonnie Terrace.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I just sold it about 2 years ago.
You kept it all this time?
Kept it all this time, yes, yeah. Well, I had always a dream of my second boy coming back. He had served 21 years, or 20 years in the Air Force. See, and I figured he would come back, but he loved Texas, see, so eventually he was killed out there, So that was
very sad.
That was a sad thing.
Yeah.
So
Decided to get rid of the house then.
yeah, there was nothing more to keep it for because all the rest of them are pretty well off,
Yeah.
So
All set. Yeah. Where do the kids live now? Are there
well, one of them is in my oldest boy. He's a chemical engineer. He lives down in where else? Only New Jersey.
And what's his name?
It's Michael.
Michael.
Yes, yeah. And then there's a Patricia. She lives up in what is it? Wellesley.
Okay.
She's right beside that college there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We got 3 grandchildren.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah. And Jan and her husband, they just moved back from Florida. They've been they were in Florida. They built a house. He was transferred. He works for Motorola, and he was moved to Washington, as a promoter, for lobbyist.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
See, and when he was in Tallahassee for them there, so they moved him up to Washington for the stop stuff. But Motorola went down a couple of years ago there.
Yeah.
So he felt he was going to be possibly laid off, so he quit, and he got into his own business, say. But Motorola come and asked him to come back with them, out of Florida. And my daughter just loved Florida, and here was the opportunity. She hated the weather in Washington. She likes the hot weather.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, they've just moved down about month and a half ago, yes.
You
Yeah.
have a nice place to go for
Yeah.
vacation.
Brian, he lives in Chicago.
Wow, you can really get a lot of traveling done, can't you? Just
Oh yeah.
visiting the kids.
Oh God, we've been all over the place. When Patty was she was a journalist for the Wall Street Journal. See, and she worked for the Miami Herald first. She left Bridgeport Post
Mm-hmm.
and went down to Miami, got a job down there in Miami Herald. See, and what a job it was. It was great. She had a little office in Del Rey. She lived in West Palm. We used to go down there. I sometimes go down there twice a year.
Yeah, it's
You know, it's really beautiful. Yes,
beautiful
yeah.
spot to be. Yeah.
But anyhow, then Jan, she went down, and of course, when she with her husband, say, and they built a house down there, and they had been down there for so many years. So there's always some place to go down there, you know. But the Wall Street Journal transferred her to San Francisco, and we used to go out there. I went out there so many times, you know. And when she was on assignment, say, to Las Vegas, she would be covering these conventions, you know, for a story for the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
She says, "Dad, why don't you come?" You know, of course, I was only too eager to go. Yeah.
That one.
So yeah,
Yeah,
so we've
wonderful.
spent she went down covering the lawyers convention down in New Orleans, and I went there, and she got me a press pass, you know, and I went in and heard Rehnquist. He was speaking, and one of the other, he was the Supreme Court judge, yes, and there was one of the other ones there, but it was so much fun.
Well, I mean, you're a very physical type person. I mean, you showed me pictures of being up on that. What was it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The balloon.
No, the parasailing.
Parasailing, and you just did that a year or so ago.
I did that last year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's no stopping you. That's why I say
know.
the dancing. People were just sitting there at the dance saying, "I
Right.
can't believe he's still dancing." People were saying, "Oh, Peter, enough!" And
Yes.
going and sit down. You just get another partner. I don't know. You have unbelievable. Now, when you got here and you started making Irish friends, you were one of the originators of this American club, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how it happened. I was great friends with Jimmy Corcoran.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Corcoran and I were real buddies. He had the same idea. Yes, go out with girls, but neither of us drank.
Mm-hmm.
He was a pioneer, as we called it,
Yeah.
and I was a pioneer. So we used to meet down practically every night down at the Y. We played handball, you know,
On State Street.
and
yeah.
on State Street.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We joined that in the Y, and of course it was a great place to get a good shower,
Mm-hmm.
because the other place had just some kind of a miserable bath in it. Anyhow, we used to go there every day, and Jimmy came to me one day, you know, we were thinking about it, you know, and he says to me, "Let's start an old club," just like that, with his Tipperary accent.
Yeah.
"Let's start an old club."
Just hear him.
Yeah, this is a great idea, Jimmy. So the following Thursday, we were down in the park, and we got a few of them, to come. We rented a little room up in the State Street there, and we had our first meeting there, So first thing was, well, how are we going to make any money? We had $9 out of that.
Was that dues?
That was dues. $1
Oh,
a piece.
please.
Yes, yeah.
Yep, okay.
There was 9 people. Yes, actually, Maureen Cochran was there, and what's her name? Tully. Oh, I forget her first name now, but she's gone to Ireland. Yes, she's still around. And I think Steve Cochran was there, and I can't remember whether Minnie was there or not, but there was 9 of us anyhow. Yes, yeah. Probably probably Mary Shea was there, and probably Rosaline Taylor was there. Yes, yeah. But we said, well, first thing we do to raise money was to run a dance, you know, because I had been playing at a few places, you know, around.
Mm-hmm.
And they says, well, we can get some money that way. So we did. We hired a place, and I think it was the Duke of Abruzzi Hall, was in Hurd Avenue, and we could get that for reasonable, $25 a night, I think it was. So, but we had to get, in order to have liquor at it, you had to get a permit. So we went down. Jimmy and I went down to the police station, and holy mackerel, we met up with a guy. He was Irish American, I guess, yes. But he gave us hell. He says, I don't want, he says, any of this throwing people down the stairs. He says, you had a club here in the 30s and they were killing each other. He says, well, he was talking to the wrong people because neither of us drank. So yes. But anyhow, we kind of assured him to see that this was going to be different. So he gave us the permit anyhow. So we started the dancing in the Hurd Avenue.
What year was that?
Oh God, that must have been it was in late 48. Yeah. See, well, I wasn't married. I hadn't met Anne at that particular time. See, but I used to play there every Saturday night.
What was the name of your band?
Well, first I joined up with, there was a band. There was a couple of guys. Well, one guy and his sister from Norwalk, and we called ourselves the Irish Ramblers. And if I looked deep enough, I might be able to get a picture of that. But anyhow, Tom and his sister used to come. She played piano, and we played the music. But one thing I found out when I was in Belfast, and playing at the different halls in Belfast, it was strictly all Irish. All jigs, reels, hornpipes. Nothing only that, see. But when I came over here, see, they didn't go for that. See, you had to know the latest songs, whatever it was. Oh My Papa and all those songs from way back in the 50s. And I liked them too, see. So the only way I could do that was to go to another accordion, the piano-keyed accordion, see. Because on the button key, you're restricted, yes, yeah. You can't get the same tone or anything. Right. So I had to learn I went and practice on this piano-keyed accordion, see. So I had both accordions. And for years I played both, For the Irish stuff, I do the box, the button box, as we call it.
So
and for the other stuff. Pardon?
So did your band make good money to start the club off then?
Oh, yes, I played for 2 years or 3 years for nothing.
Yeah, and that's how they got
And that's how they got fundraising, yes, yeah.
And
but
you were an officer in the club?
I was the treasurer, yeah.
For how many years were you?
About 5 years or so, yes, yeah. But see, when I met Anne, we got married, those wedding bells are breaking up that old gang of mine. See, so it was one of those, so things was, then when the children came, I couldn't be involved, as much, but
You've seen big changes in this club.
Oh yes, tremendous, yes, yeah.
Did you ever imagine when you started?
I never imagined there would be anything, but our aim was to get a place of our own. Yeah. That was the aim. See.
And you did it.
You had to give it to the Italians. They had 2 or 3 places. Hungarians had a place. The Lithuanians had a place. But talking about the Lithuanians, we had a little incident with them one time, and Jimmy and I were very, very lucky to get out of it. I used to, both him and I, we had contacts in New York. I knew some friends that had come over to New York, and I used to play football down in Gaelic Park for the Gaelic League, and his name was Frank McCann, and Frank used to take a football team up to the park, down Seaside Park. We'd have a game, and we'd have a meal or something like that. After that, they'd come up in a bus, and we had a great time, And
you were playing football?
Of course I was playing, yes, yeah. But July, and it's 95 degrees and humid, and the place is packed, and the sweat is running off everybody has no air conditioning.
Right, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But anyhow, everybody was having fun. But anyhow, we had rented the Lithuanian club for this particular Sunday, and the guys came up saying we had a great game or whatever it was, and we were in there and there was beer, for those who wanted it, and they were having a great time and playing away, say. But I think it was about 6 o'clock. Yeah, I don't know. We had about 4 hours or something like that. The guy come and says, "Well, this is over." Well, everybody's there. Nobody wants to leave. This party's going. Say.
Yeah.
So we said, "Well, we've had it to 8. Instead of 6, we've had it to 8 o'clock." So we got into an argument anyhow. We stayed on anyhow. So the next thing was that when we were done, we had to go down, and he says, "Well, you're going to have to come down to the club." He says, on a certain night. So Jimmy and I went down. He says, "That'll be $30 or $40 extra for the overtime." He says, "And if you don't pay it, we're going to have you arrested." So anyhow, we didn't know how to get out of that, say. But it just happened that there was a guy called Tom Sherwin. He was a captain, I think, at the fire department, and he belonged to that Lithuanian club. So after about 2 weeks of sweating it out, we got in touch with him. He went down and straightened it out. See. But my God, we were in such a... We said we were ready. We were going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. So you've seen the various clubs and the variety of people that have joined and how it's grown.
I know, yes, yeah.
And the foundation of Feile and the festival.
Right, yes, yeah.
And all these things. There were
all these
festivals
things, yes, yeah.
before.
There was, yeah. We used to have festivals up at there was a competitive Irish dancing, more or less, yeah.
That was a
Actually, one of my daughters danced there one time at the
Fairfield, was it?
Fairfield University, yes, yeah.
And now we have all this
Yeah.
big thing going on. And now you serve on the Feile board.
Yeah, yeah.
And Feile is kind of dedicated to keeping culture alive. So we've
Right,
got
yes,
everything here. And how long have you been on that board now, Peter?
Oh, I got this is about 7 or 8 years, I guess. Yeah.
So we've got
Yeah.
a really interesting group of people now.
Oh, you certainly
about
have, yes, yes.
5,500 people. Yeah.
Unbelievable,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And the place is
Yeah.
bulging with Irish culture.
It is, yeah.
Going on
Yeah,
all
absolutely,
the time.
all the
And
time.
what kind
yeah.
of things are you involved with down here? Drama, I know.
Yeah. Well, dancing in particular, anyhow. Music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to get together and get a good sing song. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
That's my idea
in
of
the Glee
joy.
Club too?
Pardon?
Are you in the Glee Club too?
Had been in the Glee Club for many, many years, but after my son passed away,
You didn't.
I left it, and I never seemed to want to get back. Yes.
Yeah.
We had a beautiful lady in that, and she seemed to hold everything together. That was Barbara Maraconda.
Yes.
Yeah, she was the loveliest person you could ever meet.
Yeah.
And when she decided that this was too much for her, and we got I forget now the second name of it, but Terry, I think it was her name, some name like that. But she was good. She was a teacher, but she didn't have the personality of Barbara.
Kind of a thing
And after a while, it started to get you went there just because you were a part of it,
Yeah.
It didn't become fun anymore. See, so.
Yeah. She did some fun things with the Glee Club.
She did, yes,
yeah,
yeah,
she did,
yeah. Oh, yeah, she was good.
So do you see the club going?
Oh, I hope it'll go on for another 200 years.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It'll be a good place.
That'll be a good place, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Would you ever
You're
think
right.
about moving back to Ireland?
No, not permanently.
No.
No, not
You
permanently.
like just your couple months?
Right, yes. Actually, since my sister and my brother died, it was great because my other brother came from Florida, and the four of us, the four of us left, met there for the whole summer.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic. But see, two of them are gone now, and I have my niece, which lives next door, but she's gone to work, in the daytime.
Yeah.
And then my nephews, they're all over the country. They're in construction.
Mm-hmm.
They have those big bulldozers and everything else like that. See, so everybody's gone. See, so it's very quiet there during the summertime. See, so I don't know if I could continue going there or not.
Really?
Well, I'll continue going for maybe a couple of weeks, but I won't spend the whole summer there.
Yeah. And you don't keep any animals or anything there yourself because it's...
No, when Jer was there, I had some sheep. Yeah. You know. Well, these were sheep that I told him to buy, but somehow my sheep never had any lambs. Because the lambs were sold before I got over there.
So he took very good care of you.
He took very good care of me, but I didn't care. It was just
and you've seen a lot of changes in Ireland too.
Oh, Ireland is a tremendous change.
Yeah.
Some good, some bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe that the drugs that are in there now, spoil the whole thing.
Yeah. It's the same problem every place, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got money. It's unbelievable, the money.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the most expensive places to live, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big, huge change from the way it was before.
One of the things that I saw, when we were living there, there was these group of people that were travelers,
Mm-hmm.
They were known as the Tinkers.
Yes.
Well, what they lived on was they made all kinds of vessels, you might call them, made out of tin, They were tinsmiths, really.
Yes. Yeah.
They were very good at it. See, they'd go around all that, they'd come and they'd park right along the road somewhere, and they would go around all the houses, the men with the cans and tins or whatever it was, trying to sell, the women coming around begging, oh, ma'am, can you have, but God bless you today now, all this baloney,
Yeah.
See, until to get rid of them, you would give them something,
Yes.
like a couple of pounds of bacon, because farms at that particular time, they would kill the pig, and the back of bacon would be hanging up,
Yeah.
So you'd take a strip of bacon, get rid of them, say, yes, or that, or it was a half a pound of sugar, they wanted some tea or whatever it was, but today, it's different with these travelers. When I was over there, I think it was in the early 90s, I guess it was, and the word came around there was going to be a fight in Crossmaglen, and this was to be the king of the travelers, the king of the gypsies, really. There was a guy coming from England, there's another guy coming from Ballinasloe, and they were going to meet in Crossmaglen. They were going to have a fight. Well, the word came around, the rumours came around, it was going to be this day and it was going to be that day. But a couple of times I ran across, in the car, Jer and I, and nothing, see. So this day, we just happened to be driving in. We see everybody running. Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Quiet Man. The old guy is dying in bed, and the priest is blessing him, like that. And the commotion is going outside. He jumps out of bed and away after the fight.
Yes.
And all these people are running. You couldn't get a parking place around this Crossmaglen.
Yeah.
And all these travellers were there, see. And they surrounded this square. They made a square for the two guys to fight. This was bare knuckles. Yeah. Nothing else, only the bare knuckle. And they fought and they fought and fought, two big guys, So, it went on for a good half hour, I'm sure. People ruined the place because they climbed up all the little trees that had been planted there. But what surprised me was these travellers, they were driving Volvos, BMWs, and Mercedes-Benz. I said, whatever happened to the guys with the old covered wagons,
Yeah.
But
those are museums.
Museums is right, yes, yeah. But anyhow, during the end of the fight, I guess they got tired of it. One guy goes in and he raises one guy's hand. Then the other guy raises it, and then the crowd starts.
Start fighting?
Start to fight as to who was the winner, see. So they rushed them away. If there's no policemen, on Crossmaglen.
Oh, okay.
See, it's the army, and the army don't care what the heck you do, as long as you're not blowing something up.
Right.
See, so there is no, if you if you had an accident or something like that, you don't know who to call. Who are you going to call? Because there's no police. Police won't come out. They haven't come out, in 25 years.
Yeah.
Because the road would be blown up. See, they were blowing up on the road, see.
Right.
So they have to travel by helicopter.
Oh.
See, that's how even the garbage coming out across McLean out of the barracks, they take the garbage out by helicopter. Swing it underneath it, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I suppose we're starting to run out of time, although I think we could sit here all the rest of the day.
I know.
The only thing I wanted to ask you about before we finish was the town that you were telling me about before that was named...
Mount Bellew?
Yeah, Mount Bellew.
Yeah.
And
well, the Bellews, after they left Louth, after they were chased out of Louth, they had to get out. They weren't given the graces from the king. The king had graces. See, that's why the flight of the Earls.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the Earls were there, and they were the kings of that particular north part, the O'Neills and the O'Donnells, right? Tyrone, Donegal, Antrim, and all around there. See, but when the Queen says, "Come over here, and we'll give you the graces," because they had to surrender their lands so as that the Queen would give them back to them.
Okay.
The Queen would own them from this day on, but under her graces, or his graces, you were allowed to stay there.
Okay.
But they knew if they went over to London, they would be into the tower,
right,
and chops their heads off.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So they all flew to France. That was why the flight of the Earls.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
But this town got established.
This town, that was in the 1653, I think it was. See, there was a sort of a revolution in 1641, and then they stayed there. They were able to stay there, but they had to get out in 1653. And what they did, they gave them a small grant of 700 acres in this particular place of Galway. There was nothing there at that time.
Just rocks.
Just rocks, bog. I was in the town, and the surrounding areas, But they went there and they built a house. It was I think they call it a manor. Mm-hmm. Wasn't a castle like they had up in Louth. See, and they stayed there. See, so there was a lot of them that grew up there. They educated. They had money, and they bought some more land. See. They had to buy the land then. See. So they had about maybe 3,000 or 4,000 acres. See. And but still, it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough rent for them to to live like the gentry that used to live. See. Mm-hmm. So they had to go into business for themselves. See. So, as I said, I think it was telling Hillary here that some of them went to the Barbados, and they went into the sugar trade. Mm. And they spent so many years in the Barbados, but then they came back to Ireland. But all their children was educated in France, because you couldn't educate them in Ireland. It was against the laws. Yes.
And that's still a town right now.
That's a town. Well, it grew up to be a town.
Yes. Yeah.
But they were the only ones there when it started.
And what are the towns that are nearby in
that? Tuam is about Tuam, Galway, Tuam, Ballinasloe.
Yeah.
Ballinasloe is not too far either.
Yeah.
That's eastern Galway, I guess. Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, and I knew it was going to be. I know, and I just feel like we could go and sit down and talk for about 4 more hours and still not get it all down. But thank you so much, Peter.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
It's
my pleasure. Yes.